Good morning. It is Sunday, about 20 after 9 on, what are we on? 6th of March. And sitting outside, pleasant morning, very comfortable. Kind of cloudy though, so not super exciting and invigorating, but pleasant. And had a few things that I wanted to talk about that have kind of been rolling through my head the last couple days. It's been a great weekend, by the way, and I'll talk about that another time. I talked a little bit the other day about opening up and reaching out and the efforts that I've made to do that. And I made mention of how me just paying attention to something else could draw attention to me. And I went through my Google Plus page and I found all these collections and groups and just scrolled through them, and anything that I thought would be interesting to me, I went ahead and clicked follow on, just to basically establish a connection and to have some more stimulus, I guess, fed into my life. And I've talked about it several times about how I really kept myself isolated. I've avoided schools, I've avoided really any kind of connection or relationship with anybody else, where anything of any importance or significance would ever be discussed or mentioned, because I really wanted to build my own base of my belief system. And one of the things that was always discouraging is anytime I would come across something that I would find interest in, a piece of work by an author or an article about somebody in regards to anything philosophical, and there was a certain amount of excitement when I come across stuff like that, because I'm like, wow, especially if it's something that's really in tune with me, something that I really buy into. And like I said, I really have taken extreme efforts to basically shield myself and live in my own little bubble while I developed and evolved my thought process and my ideas and theories. And I didn't want to be influenced by other people. I didn't want to be distracted by other people. So when I did have a rare occurrence where I did come across something and it hit so close to home, it really was discouraging. It was like a kick in the nuts sometimes, because I was like, oh, somebody already thought about that. Well, I guess there's no merit in pursuing that because it's already been pursued. And again, that's part of the ego. That's part of your I don't know. It's part of being human that you would think that, and I'm at a lack for the term, and I haven't had my caffeine yet, so I'm still a little fuzzy and groggy this morning. But hopefully, as I drink my Tazo tea here, I'll refresh and awaken a little bit. But anyway, it's in our nature, especially in mine, to minimize your ideas, especially if they're outside of the realm of what is considered normal. And so that really bolstered that whole mindset of mine to avoid those things, because I didn't want to be disrupted, and I didn't want to feel like I was the last one to the party. Like, all right, this has already been thought about, this has already been discussed, and there's no need in me to pursue it. There's no need for me to put my take on it. So in isolating myself and continuing to move forward, um, I eliminated that, and that was one of my fears as I was coming through this process the last couple of years. Is, am I ready to present myself, present my ideas, my thoughts, and for a long time, the biggest part of me was like, no, I'm not ready to not only present them and discuss them, because there was just a lack of clarity on a consistent basis to be able to do that, but I didn't feel that I was going to be on, and I talked about this a while back, on my weakest day. I didn't believe that I would be able to consciously basically stand my ground. If I was ever contradicted, then on days where I didn't have the strongest clarity and the clearest mindset and the ability to just rattle through thoughts and ideas and access the information and the knowledge that was inside, that I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't be able to basically hold my ground. I wouldn't be able to make a case against somebody, and in turn would be embarrassing and basically discrediting, which is an illusion in itself. It doesn't take away from the work just because you can't accurately present it. So, but I've in the last month or two that I've been doing this, it really occurred to me, and it really came clear that I have evolved to the point where even on my lesser days, that I would be able to make a stand. And one of the things that's just been kind of lingering in the background is the idea of consciousness, the idea of thought, and the process in which we as human beings process thought and convey thought, and it's been basically the subtext rolling around in my head that's circling and cycling through all of this, and I really haven't put much focus or attention on it. It's just been, like I said, it's kind of like a subroutine that I've just been letting run its course, and when it's time to tie it in with everything else, then great, I'll do that. But I really didn't feel any pressure or effort to do it. And it's just getting to be time to start to kind of bring that forward and start to verbalize that a little bit. And what kind of brought me to that conclusion was, as I went through and I followed all those different groups, and they were, science and the arts and philosophy and just all kinds of different groups and collections out there, and which is adding these things to my feed now on my Google Plus page. So I'm going through my Google Plus page, which is great because it gives me something else to tie my mind up with on occasion when it's just doing its thing. And just as much as I like scrolling through my Facebook feed and letting the input, the stimulus from the things that are on there inspire me and give me, concepts to think about, and just really something to focus my attention on. Now this has done the same thing, but I've come across several different articles about several different people that have done or said exactly what I'm talking about. And the first thing was that inferiority complex kind of mindset coming in. Shit, nothing I'm doing is original. Nothing, everything I'm doing has been talked about before. There's somebody out there that's probably already covered it. How can I make a difference? And that's when pieces started to fit together and formulate an idea, which kind of came to me yesterday. And I was really hoping, because again, I don't write anything down. I don't really record anything until I'm ready to sit and record something. So thoughts for me are fleeting. Sometimes they will come and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I wish I could write that down. I wish I could talk about that right now. But in my mind, I know it's not quite right yet. It's not ready yet. It's in the conceptual phase where I'm still kind of redefining it and putting it together. And I know that eventually, in the course of my day, whatever I'm doing, my focus is going to shift, and I'm going to be drifted to something else, and I'm going to lose that thought, and who knows when it's going to come back to me again. Hey, come on. No, leave the birds alone. So it really hit me yesterday when I got that. I was like, oh, this is one of those ones where I wish I could do something with this, because this is going to go, and I don't know when it's going to come back. When it comes back, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, that's right. And it really comes down to thought and being human and what our reality is. And I recently wrote something, and I had an idea very similar to this. It's basically the same, just in different words, using a different metaphor, and about the prism effect. And when I wrote it down, it struck me as something that had been kind of cycling through my mind for a few weeks. I wrote it down, and when it got to that point where I was like, all right, it's ready. I need to put it down on paper. I need to, or the screen or whatever. I need to write it so there's words there so that I can come back to it. And I just want it to be basic. It's the most simplified way that I could term it using the words that were available. And I wrote it and I posted it so that it would be there so that I could come back to it, and then I could redefine it and work on it again later. Well, when I made that first reach out to Tiffany, the author of Build the Soul, and wrote that letter, and I got a response back. One of the things that she asked is if she could share a quote from one of the things of Dallas There's, and one of them, it was from the Prism Effect, and it was still new to me. It was exciting that she asked that. It was exciting that somebody else read that, and felt something in that I felt to be extremely deep, for lack of a better word. Again, accessing my vocabulary seems to be a little bit difficult this morning as I take another drink of tea. And this is along those same lines. The idea of saying it's when I reached out to her, it was because one, she wrote a book, or she's writing a book, a trilogy, and I've been really meaning to talk about the arts or authors in specific as being creators, and the idea of consciousness and thought and creativity, because creativity is one of the cornerstones of this reality. Everything is building, evolving, it's creating, really. One thing creating something else that in turn creates something else, and combining together to collaborate to create something else. So creation is everything, and writers are one of the most important facilitators in that, because they're taking ideas, they're taking thoughts, and they're converting them into words. And this is where it hit me yesterday, that we're kind of living in a bubble, and I start thinking about how the things in our physical reality are reflections of the things that we don't see. And I started thinking about the transition of one thing on one side of an invisible barrier to the other side, and how that works. And it reminded me of the prism effect, of the idea of basically a light being consciousness being filtered through a body, which is the human physical mechanical part, and then the light you show on the other side being the prism effect. And that's just kind of paraphrasing, and it's on Dallas series. And it's kind of a work in progress, but it's really my mind has really been the last couple months, again, cycling through that idea of consciousness and thought coming from an unseen, inaccessible, to a certain extent, source into this reality, and how do you get in there? How does it transfer through? Well, it has to transfer through, and this is philosophy slash physics. It's basically, consciousness could be termed energy, and it's coming in from one side to the other. And I really thought about the planet Earth being kind of like a bubble, and the atmosphere separating our existence on the planet from a completely different setting, scene, setup, being space. So you basically got two different sides, and this is just for visual effect. Two different sides and an invisible barrier that you can transfer through, and there's got to be context. Thought has to have context to be able to be presented in this world. So it's coming through in one form, but it has to be converted. There has to be a transfer of that energy, that information, that idea into this existence, and creation, especially writers, is key for that. I mean, everything from the beginning of the time of man has been thought being transferred to other people, and a writer can interpret that. They can it's kind of like the prism effect. It's filtered through a human being. It's through the brain, and this is kind of an unseen, non-physical energy being filtered into a mechanical None of the words just seem to be adequate for describing what I'm trying to describe. So it's the human race is basically it. It's the filter that the information is coming through, a certain type of information, because there's other ways for it to filter through. There's other ways for it to manifest in this reality, but the most efficient way is through the human mind, through the human brain. So there's thoughts coming through, and the evolution of that individual from a origination standpoint, basically what you would consider the soul, and how old that soul is and how much experience that soul has, and then choosing a body, picking like genetic composition. Really, you're picking a bloodline. You're picking, your ancestry and your parents, and them pairing together to pick the potential of creating a vehicle that can best accommodate what you're trying to bring in, and that's how you become you. So you have a certain amount coded in your genetics. It's like I said, it's kind of a, I don't know, I'm not going to talk about that right now. And then you're taking your source, your being, and you're filtering it through that mechanism. And whereas the prism effect is really the effect that you have on the environment around you, more on a physical sense. It's like that taking of light through a prism and having the display of colors on the other side. It's really the effect that you're reflecting the polar opposite of a shadow puppet into this world, really. And your thoughts are on the same premise, but on a completely different level. And there's your thoughts, your core being, your soul being filtered through, but there's also, inherent energy that comes through with it. It's wisdom of the universe, knowledge of forever, whatever you want to term it, is coming through as well, and it's no different than any instinct that might be present in any living creature that's been coded into their DNA. It's just there, and it comes through. It's kind of just, it's there, and it combines together, and then it's getting crammed into this mechanical cranial area to be evaluated, and it's basically an interpretation. You're basically getting something in a form that is not ready for, it can't be conveyed really without converting it into some other kind of context. So that's what I keep saying, is context. It comes down to context whenever you're conveying or converting thought, or converting that energy from that unseen side to this physically seen side. And physically seen, I mean through the mechanicals of your body and your senses. So writers generate stories, they generate ideas, they generate imagery, which is a reflection, it's a conversion of that energy into an idea, into a thought, which can be picked up. And some of it is can be very simple and literal. That's boom, this is this, and you present that, and it's very easy for another person to read it. And some of it, depending on the subject matter and how common it is as far as being presented into this reality, it's harder to conceptualize, it's harder to convert into an image or an idea or a system that someone else can read and easily be able to, it's open to interpretation. You're interpreting it to convey it, and they're interpreting it to absorb it, consume it, and have it affect them. And it's really, again, it comes down to the ability to convey, the ability to interpret, and that there's a flexibility in it. But there's a certain feeling, there's a core feeling in there that's going to carry a residual feeling. And writers, again, I think that's the beauty, and that's why I've been drawn to writers and to writing my whole life, because that's where it comes in. That's where that transfer on its most pure state is seen in conveying unseen to seen. And again, it has to be, you have to give it a context. And I played around with this because I developed, I didn't, in my own personal, again, I have to convert ideas into reality here. So my whole baseline of a perception and perspective, which is basically the ability to interpret what's around you and interpret what's presented to you, I didn't want it to be wishy-washy. And there's something about spiritualists that have always seemed to be kind of flaky and weird to me, and I never wanted to be that. I've always had more of an edge. I've always had more grit, and I've always felt like it had to have more ass to it, really. It just had to have more structure, more substance to the, again, kind of wishy-washy kumbaya approach of, oh, life is beautiful and God is good and everything is, which is nice. I mean, it serves its purpose, but it's not for me. Again, for me, it's a point of perspective on evolution, and just not my route. So now that I lost my whole train of thought. So anyway, context and conversion. So I wrote an article for an industry magazine, the National Association of Residential Property Managers, and because that's what I do right now, is that's how I earn my money, is working in property management. And I basically took a very strongly philosophical concept that, to me, I really hate to say it, dumbed it down by putting it in the context of property management. I took it and I put it into scenarios that were easily conveyed through the context of property management and the idea of perception and how we as individuals deal with certain things on a daily basis, and how we communicate and interact, and how that perception ties into that, how that controls that. And it was really, again, I took an idea that was highly spiritual in nature and I added a context to it to be able to present it, and I thought it was fantastic. I think it came out great. I don't know how many people read it, doesn't really matter. It was an experiment. I wanted to see and basically experiment with the idea of converting a concept into something that could be passed along. And that transfer of thought, that transfer of knowledge, information, energy from the unseen into the seen is no different. There has to be some kind of context, and writers and creators provide a context, and there's no right or wrong. It's just you're pouring something in, and it goes into your brain, and you interpret it. It turns into a thought. It turns into a picture. It turns into a story. However you want to do it, but there's information in there. There's energy in that, and we've hit a time now in this timeline of our reality where the information, the ideas that are coming in are different. The beliefs of old are no longer adequate to convey what the energy that's coming in. As there's been a shift, we've gone into a new cycle, and writers on this planet are presenting that information, and it's shifting into what would be considered the metaphysical genre of writing. So there's so many things about werewolves and vampires. That's why they're so popular now, because it's really taken that new energy, which is not new. It's been around, because there's been those stories but they just weren't as impactful, I think, on the masses as those concepts and those ideas are now. And it's basically a concept that's been filtered through humanity to generate a picture that can be passed from one person to the other, that carries a specific energy. And the reason I was so drawn to Tiffany's book is because she's done that. She's just in the concept alone in The Oldest Soul is something that's on the basic level. That's on the level that everybody can understand. But there's a depth in that also that she's getting, and she's either aware of it or she's not. And I think a lot of people are not even aware that what they're conveying. I suspect that she is aware on a higher level of what she is conveying, because she's taking a concept that is higher up, I guess, in the evolutionary scale, and filtering it through into the masses, and it's multifaceted. There's the basic story that you can enjoy and take pleasure from. There's the underlying spiritual / philosophical message, again, which is very easily digestible by the masses on multiple levels of evolutionary progress. But then there's that deep core essence, which is that pure idea of thought that's been filtered through a human being and transferred in imagery. And that's where I feel more assured of myself now. as I said, I've been reading these things. I've been exposed to different authors and different individuals that have been great people in their lives that have done and said things similar or exactly the same as myself. And I do remember saying this recently. It's not that I'm presenting new information. I have a way of interpreting it that is new. I have a way of compiling and piecing it together like a puzzle that is new. And it's taking all that information, it's taking all those ideas and assembling them in a different manner, and being able to maybe explain it to where it makes sense to other people. And in doing that, just like any other writer or any other creator, I'm altering this reality. I am opening new doors and basically expanding the opening on some of the ones that have been open for a long time. And this is where I feel comfortable now in seeing those things and knowing that I'm going to be contradicted. I'm going to be opposed by ignorant individuals that only see one side, and it's never as simple as that. There's never one side. It's going to be, I keep seeing the tree of life from Kabbalistic writings and all the pathways. Except for when I see it in a multi-dimensional shape. It's not just a two-dimensional image. It has sides. There's more paths there than even I think the people that think they understand that. There's more there, and again, it's making my head hurt. Just seeing this and trying to convey it. I can see it in my head, and it's causing my forehead, my brain in my forehead, that feels like it's throbbing. In trying to see this image and project it into this world, there's so much there, and we're just scratching the surface of being able to understand that, not just in a select group or a minimized collection of thinkers that collaborated and were able to understand it themselves and maybe share it with people that they deemed eligible, ready, word escapes me, worthy. It's going to be digestible for a higher percentage of the population, and the things that are coming through in writing and movies and books and things today are conveying that, and it's being proven to me that people are absorbing that and seeing it on a different level. They're getting more out of it, and I'm excited to be part of this. And again, I've been reaching out. I'm looking to establish connections with other creative individuals to be able to help move this process along. And I'm not sure if it's showing up in the camera here, but I've got a bottle of water, a bowl of water, and some ice cubes all sitting here. Because when I was sitting there thinking about the prism effect yesterday, and I was thinking about the transfer of energy / ideas, consciousness into this world as filtered through the human brain, and the idea of going through an invisible barrier, and the idea of giving something context to be able to pass it along, to be able to get it through that area. This is what I got. Water. See? Water. It's very difficult for me to grab it. It's very difficult for me to hand it to somebody else. I can flick little bits of it, and it'll hit different things and stick to, and some people will get it, and you can drink it, you can wash with it, you can do whatever, but it's really hard to give it and pass it to somebody. But you put it in a vessel or a vehicle, it's very easy to give to somebody. You want this? And this alone, just in being cold and having condensation on it, which is creating, again, more moisture, more water to pass along. It's completely different and separate from what's in the bottle and the cap that's got it sealed. But the dog can lick it right off the bottle. No, those are my ice cubes. And then, again, ice cubes. Context. Ice cube. There, I just shared information with the dog in the form of an ice cube. Even this bowl. It was a mode of transportation. They got it from the sink to the table out here. And what I do with it when I get it out here, that's free will. And I can put the ice cubes back in the water. And pretty soon, they'll be melted back in there with the other water in the same format as that. That's consciousness. That's the conveyance of thought that's filtered through the human mind. I think that's it.